So, I've been debating on this, and I've been trying to figure out how to explain it. The spiritual path that I ended up taking, and I was cocky. I was really cocky because I was into spiritual stuff from a very, very, very young age. First, I had Valley experience. I was only like 5. Of course, The Craft came out the same year I got my first tarot deck. So I've always been into that. I've always very much been into past life readings. I've always suffered from a lot of past life dreams and stuff like that. Um, I suck at remembering people. I seem to remember certain clusters of people. That the best I can figure is like whenever I run into a new cluster of people, because I've moved a lot in my life because of the military. Um, but every time I bump into a cluster of people, I can remember a past life. If not with them, but or of theirs of some kind. But so like 6 years ago, and I've mentioned this before, um, I've been with my first husband for like 10 years and got into a physical altercation, and I had this profound moment where something screamed in my ear. Is this the timeline you want to be on? Is this the timeline you want to be on? And I was like, no. No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm an Aries. Been with a Sagittarius for 10 years. We got 2 kids. All we do is fight. We've got nothing in common. We don't like the same fucking music. We don't, he's addicted to video games. We don't do anything, It was the same cycles over and over again. You get a job, you lose it. Get a job, you lose it. Get a job, you lose it. Over the 10 years, my back crumbled apart so bad that it became harder and harder and harder and harder and harder for me to even work on top of just, having the kids and everything else. And I was just in the house because it wasn't like he was going to help me clean anything. Um, I mean, even when I did work, like, I would work, I would work, let's see, I had the night shift, he had the day shift. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning and take him to his ride to go to work. And then I would drive to work at 3. Um, I would come home from dropping him off, and then I put my son on the bus for his half day of kindergarten, and then me and Alyssa would take a nap, and then I would get my son off the bus for kindergarten. I would clean the house, prep everything for him to cook for dinner, and then I'd go to work at 3, and we would switch the kids into the car that he rode there with, and they would take him all the way home and the kids home, and then he would cook dinner, and then I would get off at 11, but I wouldn't get home till like 12:30. And then I would get home, and then I would have to clean the kitchen before I went to bed. Or it would be waiting for me the next day when I wanted to go prep dinner. Um, yeah, and it would take me till like 1:32 to finally fall asleep. And I get up and do it again the next day, and I grinded like that, dude. When we moved to Virginia, I grinded like that for a few months. It was 6 months straight in order to just even get into the insurance shit. And then a bunch of shit happened. I moved back to South Carolina. That's not the point. That wasn't the point I was going for with this at all. Anyway, I had an epiphany. Do you want to be on this timeline? What? Because this timeline is leading you to being a tucked back in the woods, nobody knows about, beaten housewife that doesn't go nowhere. And I was like, nah, I'm not taking the violent relationship timeline. So I jumped, left, changed it. Thought I was so fucking smart. I was gonna figure it out, right? I knew the plan. You know, I started dating my best friend from when I was 19. Didn't think it could be more perfect, right? Love the same music, love riding around together, love partying together. Like that was always our thing. He was our roommate several times. He was kids, he's my son's godfather. Could be more perfect, right? What could be more perfect? And 2017 happened. And my second husband, my best friend since I was younger, he was getting sick. He was getting sicker. He was getting sicker. He was getting sicker. And he wasn't able to breathe at night. And he would wake up, and I would hear him stop breathing. And because he was so heavy. He's a big man. Like when I got with him, he was already like 275 pounds. But by 2017, he was up to like 330, if not over. He wasn't even weighing himself anymore. And the doctors told him, they did this whole thing with him where they were like, you got to lose 30 pounds. We're going to give you 3 months to lose 30 pounds. And he did good for the first couple of weeks. He, came home, did his walks, all that stuff, and it was coming off steady, and he was doing good. And then what? Stepped in a hole, hurt his ankle. Never went walking again. Put on all the weight that he lost, plus a little bit more. And then one morning we were getting ready, and I was getting ready to take him to work, and he said something while he was putting on his shoes, and he was bitching. He was getting a lump on his lip, a white lump on his lip. And he said he needed to go to the doctor. I looked at him, I was like, you can't. You can't. The health program you're on, they told you, if you didn't lose that weight in the time they gave you, and it's almost up to that time, that you would lose your health coverage. And just the energy he put off in that moment, like I literally could see waves of energy coming out around him. And that's when it hit me. This timeline leaves you a widow by 40. Because he's not coming with you to the next frequency. And if they don't come with you, the universe will remove them in one way or another to a different timeline. So, being the spiritualist I am and speaking to the things that I do speak to, and I ended up going through a massive heart center opening. Like, literally, the pain was so hard in my chest when I was coming to these realizations. The realization was that, I was pretty much told it was send him back to his mountain. Send him back to the mountain. It was the only thing my higher self could come up with. He could breathe better in higher altitudes. He could move around more up there. Maybe he'll keep walking if he goes up there. Oh, his family just left and moved up there. So I did. And that wasn't easy. I will say that was 100 times harder than leaving my first husband. Because technically on paper, the man did nothing wrong. I mean, he worked hard, didn't cheat. He helped me with the laundry and stuff on the weekends, It was a little boring and routine-y, but, he was an Aries on Taurus cusp. So, they get kind of boring and they're fucking pain in the ass about fucking food. I have another Taurus in the house, too. That's the most annoying thing about Taurus. What? Oh, my God. Just make their food plain and let them season it themselves, because if you do anything to it, they're going to bitch about it. So, this is my fair warning for that. I'm sorry, that was off the point. But, yeah, it was... Oh, I don't even have my lighter on me. I must have left it in the house. Nope. Not in any of my pockets. Wait. I do got it. I know I'm being so bad right now, but I think I've done pretty good. Despite of everything that's been going on lately. I deserve my cheats. So I had to do that. And that was in 2018. April 2018 that ended up happening. Like 2017 was this whole cycle of not getting healthy, things getting worse. And then 2018, I was like, yeah, go. So that happened. And then I spent the next several months trying to live without that extra income and without that extra help. And then towards the end and towards October, November, I started taking Chantix to quit smoking. Something in here was freaking out that everybody was going to die, that everybody in my life that smoked was going to die if they didn't stop. Right? So that was the psychosis that built up over a couple of weeks of taking. I didn't even make it the full month on the Chantix. I only made it 3 weeks in. First week, that's the first psychosis that hit. Second week, I'm fighting everybody in my life that smokes. Tooth and nail fighting them. You know, I can't talk to any of them. I can't stand any of them. They're driving me nuts. I'm sitting here telling you something's about to happen. Nobody's listening to me. Nobody. I don't know what happened. I don't know how I was not on the timeline. Not in here. I was not on the timelines anymore. I was on all fucking timelines. And not only was I on, by the third week is when I stopped sleeping. And I was on all the timelines. And I was on multiple people's timelines, right? So I was getting things in, about, my aunt, my uncle. I was getting things in about my mom. I was getting things in about my grandma. I was getting things in about, her sister and the things that were going on with them. And I was getting in all kinds of, And then by the end of that third week, I hadn't slept in several days. And it gotten really bad. It gotten to the point like part of my mind knew that something was going to happen. I kept getting phone calls that I had won a free 2-week vacation. I wouldn't take any of them. And something in my mind was like, you're going away. Universe was like, oh, well, if you're not going to take the fun trip and do what you need to do to get that, we got something for you. So part of this, a lot of this shit I'm doing subconsciously. It's all autopilot things that I'm doing at this point. Couldn't stop cleaning. Something in me was driving me nuts, and it was killing me because for some reason I had the obsessive need that my house needed to be spotless. I was like, the kids needed to clean their room, mom needed to clean her room, and they're all fighting me tooth and nail about cleaning their room. Wouldn't nobody go in their room and clean it? Nobody would go clean their rooms. And so that started becoming a fight, and I had to start pushing my mom out of my house to go back. I'm like, no, don't come back into my side until your side is fucking spotless. I'm sick of this. And, but of course, she's also noticing. So she's not leaving me alone because she's noticing that I'm doing all these things at one time. And that hadn't have been easy for anybody to watch. And yeah, I watched every stitch of clothes in the house. I made sure everybody had clean sheets, everything. I made sure everything was done and ready to go by the time I finally lost my shit and went into the hospital. But those last days, I was freaking out about my mom's animals. And I was tripping out. I'm like, they're gonna die. They're not taking care. Something's gonna happen. They don't look good. And she's like, they're fine. They look like they've always looked. There's nothing wrong. They're still acting the same. She couldn't understand why I was wigging out, thinking her animals were dying. And then, and now this is my perspective on what little things that I could piece together about the massive amount of shit I was downloading at the time. On the last days, my hallucination was that my aunt and my uncle were on drugs, and what they were doing is they were knocking themselves unconscious, and then their higher selves, which your higher self can be an angel or a demon. It really depends on your inner fucking personality. So some people can seem really nice, but they're not. In here, they're fucking twisted. All right? So I had this whole thing where I felt like they were jumping around in people's bodies and doing this body jumper thing. And there was this energy that was just fucking chasing me around. I was running from it. I felt it coming off my mom. I felt it coming from everybody. And I ended up running to my grandparents' house. And all hell broke loose over there. I felt like they had jumped into my grandparents and they had followed me there and blah, 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 blah. And then there was this whole thing in the bathroom with the altercation with my grandfather. And he was just trying to open the door, so it was a total accident, but he ended up breaking my finger. Which later I realized that part of my psychosis that week was I was trying to get out all male energy in my house. So I was witch jarring anything that was left behind by any man that had been in my house, burning old shirts, anything that was left behind, things of that nature, just trying to cleanse any of that energy at my house because I felt a really masculine, nasty masculine energy around. Anybody that I wasn't met with. So what I did is I jarred up all the little, anything that was a gift or something like that from any kind of guy in our lives, any man, even Raven Ralph. I even boxed him up, and I put anybody that I wasn't like mad at, I put in my what I call my granny cabinet, where I have my 2 granny dolls, which I'll show you guys again another time. I locked them all in there, and I just tied it shut with as many knots as I could, and I did a ritual around my house for protection, all this stuff, right, to go. And this was the only, I had been doing cord cuttings too for a while. This was my wedding ring from my second marriage. It was the only one I couldn't break, the only cord I couldn't cut. And my grandfather accidentally broke this finger trying to get out of the bath. I had my hand on the handle, and he grabbed the handle. When he turned it, he accidentally broke my finger. And then I just distinctly remember where we were running out to the car, and I felt like, it's hard to explain, you know, and then I went to the hospital for 2 weeks, and I detoxed Chantix out of my system, and I finally got some sleep. Oh my God. And I'm telling you, I've never quite been the same since. I'm not quite on the same frequency as anybody around me anymore, so that does cause a lot of tension. I'm not sure how long that tension's going to be able to last before I might have to move or something like that. I don't know. We're working on it. As long as people are trying, I'm willing to keep working on it. But everything happened. Everything happened. Watching the first part of this year has been so hard. My grandmother's sister died. COVID hit. One of my best friends, her father-in-law died that she was really close with. All my mom's animals that I was worried about, they all died. My grandmother's dog died. And then the cherry on the cake was my aunt and my uncle were doing heroin. And they blacked out and they almost killed themselves because it was laced with fucking fentanyl. And they almost died. So I was even right about that. My obsessive need for having the house clean, we had to redo the whole house in order to get my little cousin out of foster care. Another psychosis that hit during those weeks was the exercise psychosis. I couldn't stop working out. Couldn't stop. By the end of it, I was running, and I'm not supposed to. I'm not supposed to. It was really hard those 2 weeks in the hospital because I really pushed my body way, way harder than I needed to, and I was so sore. I paid so hard for all that running. And now I've experienced the timeline collapse before, but I never experienced anything like that before in my life. So when people tell you that the spiritual path can get crazy and scary, and you think it's all just going to be fairy portals and dancing and sparkles next to the river, I'm not sure what I came to heal. I know I've healed a lot in my family karma, and I've healed a lot in my ex-husband's family karma. I get a trip out of Rob's family because his grandfather is a death Marine, just like my grandfather. His grandmother is just like my grandmother. His mom is so cool. Only thing is, she is way more bubbly than my mom. I don't know. I guess Libras and Tauruses don't get along, but I love her to death because I'm an Aries and she's a Libra, and I love that she's just like my best friend. So I find that so cool. Yeah, his family's just like my family, so I find that very trippy. But yeah, and I'll probably try to explain this again, and it might be a little, and it's hard because literally I was writing all those different levels that I tried to explain to you. Those were all thoughts that were simultaneously running through my head nonstop for 3 weeks straight. And here I am, just my 3D self was gone. I mean, and on a spiritual level, what I felt, what was going on, like that was what I felt like what was going on with people. With people. A lot more than people in this world, man. And what had happened is when I started to lose my mind, they all started fighting too. Well, here's the problem: when they all started fighting, what do you think they were doing? Do you think they're so much more enlightened than people are? No. Each one of these entities are actually just higher selves of other people, and they're all blaming each other for why I'm going crazy, and they're fighting. And that's just causing more chaos energy on me. It's causing chaos energy for them. I don't know if anybody's going to get that part. I'm not going to get into super details. Maybe one day I'll get Rob and Luna to get together, and they can both tell you about their dreams between the angel and the dragon fighting. Which is trippy, because I didn't even know about those guys doing all that happening to them, because I wasn't talking to nobody. I was just obsessed with trying to get my shit done. So, but I did make it out the other side. And my message for that would be, before the rain really starts coming down out here, is sometimes, you know, that heart center opening you get and how painful it is. Woo. Let me pull my cushion up so it don't get wet. I can hear the rain coming. You know how they talk about heart center opening can be really painful? The Kundalini, I've told you, if you have back injuries and stuff like that, it can cause you some problems. To rewire your mind, sometimes the universe has to break that too. So, and I'll leave you with one last little thing. Haven't seen the Yaya Sisterhood? You really need some Vivi Bebe Walker in your life. All right? So that's me doing my best to explain a mental breakdown in the middle of a spiritual awakening. And I hope this may clarify some things for some people, or at least bring some peace to some people who went through these dark times, because there were people who were losing their minds and they tried coming to me, and I had no answers for them at the time. I didn't understand what they were going through, and I couldn't relate. But that's why I tell everybody that it's very important that when we go through these things, that we try to find a way to share them with each other. Even if it's just in like comments on videos like this. Every person who comments saying something similar, or that they've experienced things like these too, it will help everybody else who comes in here and reads those comments to be like, okay, yeah, I do get what you're saying, chick. Might not have been quite that crazy, but it got pretty crazy, and they can read everybody else's little statements, crazy, 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 and we can all be like, oh, maybe we're not so crazy, because technically you cannot be insane if you know you're insane. All right, y'all? I love you so much. Maybe I'll do a part 2 about how it was in the psych ward. That was interesting. Anyway, blessed be all those who walk these twisted paths with me. I love y'all, truly. And I'll talk to you later.